Okay, super. So episode 27, we're in the middle of May, and we're 2 majors in. So just to kick off, how about a synopsis of the Masters and the more recent PGA last weekend? What are your overall thoughts?
I suppose predictable enough in one breath. Like myself and a buddy of mine have been chatting about that this year is going to be a 2-horse race for the whole year, particularly a major season, and that's certainly true so far. Sure, Tiger's win, his 15th major, I never thought I'd have a better day watching golf. Rory's win was right up there. Now I'm a massive Tiger fan, but it was unbelievable. As a major, for what happened, the ups and downs, the stuff going on, 13, blah blah blah, all of that stuff. But yeah, that was brilliant. It was great for him. But the PGA probably came along a bit too soon for him. I felt that I was like, geez, how's he going to? Because he played well the week before, but not the way he was playing. And then you could see Scheffler having his win and his kind of asserting himself again. And again, we were chatting in the gym here, oh, he's the most boring world number one of all time, but he's probably not, to be fair. If you think back, Luke Donald was world number one too. He didn't really rock your world, and he didn't win majors, but I suppose the man is so calculated, and he's probably the closest iron player to Tiger in his prime that you will see again, because Tiger used to always say, himself and Stevie Williams used to high-five each other when they hit it pin high, and you can see Scheffler and Ted Scott are all about that. They seem to be, they get a good kick out of hitting their number, and yeah, he's not, let's say he's not all piss and vinegar, he's doing his thing, and he doesn't assert himself on people. He chats to people and he seems to just get it done, and when he can kind of quietly put the hammer down and bogey the last win by 5 in a major, so it'll be interesting to see, again, Bryson is there all the time. There's another argument, all the live guys aren't sharp. They're not in an environment that makes them sharp for, let's say, world golf. I do certainly align to that, with the exception of Bryson, because I think he went off in a different way. He just, I suppose, created a pressure and intensity for himself by testing himself on YouTube. So, and he just, I know people might watch his videos and go, sure, it's only popcorn stuff, but to be fair, he rocks up at random golf courses and he says, I'm going to do something today, and he gets intense about it, and he gets some sort of competitive edge because there's pressure and there's eyeballs, and I'm pretty sure that's what he's trying to simulate himself, so I think that's why he's probably, and he drives the ball, I know it was said on commentary loads the other night, for how hard he hits it, he's putting it out there north of 190 every time. And it's rare you see Bryson in the shite, to be fair, you know what I mean? So I'd say Scheffler hit it offline a lot more than Bryson did in the last round the other week. So going forward, I think it's between those three for the US Open. Port Rush then is different because you've got weather, but if it's a still, you can't discount Scheffler again, I'd imagine Rory would want to make a savage, make amends the way he handled Port Rush the last time, and yeah, so that's it's nice to see, the world number 1 and 2 kind of dominating golf, which is in my book kind of the way it should be.
Yeah, with Bryson specifically, where is he letting himself down? Because he's there.
For me, he's an unbelievable pitcher of the ball, chipping particularly. I've always liked his putting style. I can't understand why, again, now he did hit one shot the other night, and I was like, Jesus, there it is. It's it's just a kind of a chippy iron. I never see him fade his irons. It's always a full tilt high draw. Got away from him on the Masters down the stretch. It got away from him again. He hit some 17 in round 3 was a criminal shot. Yeah. You know what I mean? Where everyone was kind of dealing with some sort of flighted shot. He's trying to max out on something. So I'd love to see him take speed off his irons, take spin off his irons, and actually start to fade them, or have that option. I don't see that in his toolbox at the moment. It might be technically, it just doesn't suit the way he swings the club, or it should suit the way he grips it, particularly his left hand. I don't know what's going on there, but The Masters was sinful for him coming down the stretch. Like, he just looked like a fella who couldn't keep an iron on the fair, or keep an iron in play, you know.
Nothing wrong with it.
What?
But I heard McGinley speaking about that as well. There was, I think it was the 17th, as you said, pin on the right, wind off the left.
Yeah.
Sorry, wind off
the right. Yeah. And he hits it in the water left.
Yeah.
And it seems to be too high and too fast.
And is that common amongst other pros? For example, Tommy Fleetwood. I know he doesn't have all the shots in his locker when it's crunch time either. Hence, he may not be a major candidate.
Yeah, look, Tommy Fleetwood again. Tommy Fleetwood, like, again, you could say, look, great striker, probably predominantly a drawer again. I'm not saying a draw or fade is the debate here at all, but what I do know is when Tiger was in his prime, there was no better man to fade and draw irons, but hit the number. Yeah. Now, Scheffler rarely draws. He loves to go to that fade shot, and he's the best at it. But like, Rory can take heat off his irons, he can flight his irons, and he can bring up. I think that might have suited him in the Masters, to be quite honest. You know, only he knows this, but like, the shots he hit down the stretch kind of suited because they were full tilt shots. Like, that shot into 15 was a full tilt high draw. That's right in his wheelhouse. This shot into 16, he took speed off it. This shot into 17, in my head, was quite lucky. Like, he hit a full 8-iron up into the air, and it landed in a little 2 feet box that rolled up stone dead. Like, if that went short and rolled back down the green, don't know would he have won the Masters. Wow, yeah. Right? So, like, you never know that type of stuff, but they're the things that fall in your but you have to be able to hit the shot like this. Again, I don't think there's anyone who could have hit an 8-iron maybe that hard and that high at that time. You know, it kind of suited. But, you know, coming back to Bryson, particularly down the stretch like of Augusta, it was just out of control. It seemed out of control, you know, and he looked distracted then in his interviews after, giving out about Rory not talking to him, like, Jesus. And I am a fan of his, like, but you're kind of going, gee, be quiet, will you? You know, that's not doing your brand any good, like.
Touching on John Ram as well, good to see him competitive again.
Yeah, but again, where I go with that is, as soon as the heat came on and he was in some sort of a mix, he went bananas. Like, he's completely lost his game under pressure. Why? Because I believe that, you know, he's been out of that heat, that intensity for so long, pricking around on the live tour. You know what I mean? Like, you can't convince me that they're getting the same intensity. Not a chance. Yeah. Brooks Koepka is a prime example. That guy 3 years ago or 4 years ago was sitting in press conferences going, these lads are shite. When I turn up to a major, I'm only really playing against 10 of them. Like, he was saying that type of language, like. Yeah. And now he can make a cut. There's a picture of him inside in a 7-Eleven with a 32 slab of beer, like, you know what I mean? On Friday evening, like.
After an argument with a fan, like.
Probably, yeah. Like, and it's. You could go down through like Cam Smith, won the Open, super player, like really up and comer, goes to live, done. Like Koepka the same. Dustin Johnson, finished. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's. I can't align to the fact that they're getting the same competitive training week in, week out as the lads on the PGA Tour. I just can't. And look, I think the stats, and there's always an outlier in everything, and Bryson is the outlier in this one. Yeah. So that's it. And look, again, you can say, oh, well, Patrick Reed did well in the Masters. He did. He obviously likes the Masters. He's won there. You know what I mean? You can have that. There's a horses for courses element there, but as a whole, I like, even when I saw Neiman doing so well, I said, oh, I think he'll have a good Masters. And he did okay, but like, no one contends. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he had a good PGA too, to a point.
He did, yeah.
And then the likes of Spieth, it's almost upsetting watching that poor man at the moment, like, over the last while. But look, there's loads we can touch on there, and there's 2 majors to go, so we'll park that for the moment. And getting more into a topic that's common amongst other platforms at the moment, which is the World Handicap System, and I suppose it's always in commentary around the golf clubs and stuff, and the problems with it, and perhaps potential solutions to what those problems are. So to start, can you just give your summary of what the old system, what worked about it, what it was, and we'll go from there.
All right. So the old system for me was categorized let's say from north of 18 to 18, 18 to 12, 12 to 5 and 5 below. Thereabouts, right? So based on the, you know, the mathematical arrangement of the amount of players, their handicaps, and the standard scratch. So the standard scratch was, let's say, based on conditions and all of that wrapped into one. People would play individual competitions and they would get assessed that day. So basically, if I play Douglas, standard scratch is level par, just for the sake of, if it's 72, I'm playing off +4. If I shot 66, +4 is 70, I would get cut 0.2 from my handicap, right? Now, if I was beyond 73, because you would have one shot, which used to be called the buffer zone. If I was outside of that, you get 0.1 applied onto your handicap. That was for me as a Category 1 player. That was difference for Category 2, 3 and 4. The 0.1 was consistent for add-ons, but the reductions were different based on the handicap you were. So I think that was just a fairly straightforward way of managing someone's ability to play golf. And I think by and large, it gave people a fair enough measurement of how they played. It did for me anyway. I always thought it was fair, and yeah, outside of that. So then the new system arrives, and then you hear, right, you're now playing. I remember, like, I'm plus 4.0 is my handicap now. I was plus 6.5. Like, plus 6.5 back in the day was Tiger Woods standard. Like, when they, you know what I mean? Sergio Garcia, you'd hear these type of handicaps. Rory, that was like, and yeah, I remember looking at it plus 6.5 and going, that's bullshit. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, because it's not. It's like it was actually like, we're just going to change the currency, right? So everyone's handicaps is just going to go down. I get it, based on mathematics, different way of computing WHS. I get all of that. But just for people who, there are still a lot of people who do not understand. I have a few notes here, I'm going to refer to them, right? Yeah. So there's the new introductions were things like course rating and slope rating. So this is, I think a lot of the goals behind this was to kind of unify this the world over. So when people travel to different golf courses, they could apply their handicaps quite easier. I could be corrected on that, but for me, I think that's the biggest one. So a course rating, the expected score for a scratch golfer, simple as. And then the slope measures how much harder the course plays for a bogey golfer compared to a scratch golfer. So there's a bit of a spread there, right? So the course rating usually goes from 67 to 77, and then the slopes vary from like 55 to 155. I've never seen either. But I always relate to the course rating because that's the number I kind of see as a, let's say, a low handicapper. Yeah. That's where, like, I see, like, there's big issues there, I think, like, you know. Like, I'm not going to really name golf courses, but, like, let's put it, one golf course is 72.9. It's an inner city golf course, about 6,500 yards. And then there's a seaside course in Kerry that's a very similar course rating from the tips. So to put that in perspective, right, I can come up to the inner city golf course and shoot 600 par, and I can go down to the windy golf course that's an absolute beast of a course, and apparently it's the same course rating. Now bring that back a step, right? How have these courses been rated? Number one, there are criteria, and we have them. So again, if people are interested, there's things like, and these are all rated, I'll fly through these, right? I don't have to go into these. Things like topography, fairway, green target, recoverability and rough. Like, some of this stuff is like, are you serious? There's another one here, psychological. So visual intimidation, and all these things are rated from 0 to 10. And I'm kind of going, right, how can someone, right, if I'm off, let's say I bring Padraig Harrington in to rate my home club, right? He stands up in the first and he's saying psychological versus, let's say, a 15 handicap person who is also employed to do the same thing. Now, surely that's going to be a different score, right? Surely. I think some stuff you just can't get around, because if there's a bunker or a hazard or a tree or whatever, that's all there, and that's easy to work out. But I think the ways potentially that courses have been rated isn't I haven't heard of them being re-rated either enough. Like surely it should be like your insurance, it gets checked, you know what I mean? Or you go looking at your insurance again, like, you know. So what are the knock-ons of this? Why do clubs do well in teams? There's lots of reasons, right? Why do clubs not do well in teams? It could be that the golf course projects handicaps that aren't necessarily reflective of the person's abilities, potentially. Quite a controversial thing to say, but it could be true. It could be true. So if you're playing against another golf course that is a harder course, and then the two handicaps come together, easy course, harder course, on an easy golf course, harder course will surely beat the shite out of easy course, or statistically that will happen. Yeah. So look, there's potentially that type of stuff happening. Another thing I saw at the weekend, I have to be careful on this one, some younger players could potentially start knocking it around, get cozy, and I'm going to lead in now to this casual golf rubbish, and by no, let's say, hidden agenda, get to a lower handicap and then get spotted and say, right, you're playing for us on Bruin, Purcell, Barton Shield, Senior Cup, whatever, Junior Cup, whatever it is. But that person is not ready at all, has never played under any sort of pressure, just gets put into that and can get disheartened. I saw that happen very recently, and I think back and kind of go, if that player was on the old system, he'd be 5 or 6 shots higher. Yeah. And it would take him longer and a bit more competitiveness by playing club competitions, grinding to get his handicap down, to get a trial for a team and maybe get into it that way. Potentially that's better, potentially it's not better. There's always a contrarian view to all of this, by the way, but these are just opinions that I see knock-ons. But the one thing I can't kind of get away from is like a casual golf score. I like, surely that should be just abolished. Like, what's the upside of that? I don't get it. Like, for a competitive overview looking at it, I think if anyone is going to put their handicap on the line, you sign in, you play in a competition, it feels different, you might prepare differently. I don't care if it's your club competition. Compared to, I was on the putting green yesterday and a fella came on and he was like, it's a nice day, greens are good, will we go out and play, will we nominate? And I'm going, where's the competitiveness of this? Now, I don't mind it per se, like, because grand, you get 4 or 5 guys together and you create some sort of competitive bubble, and you know it affects your handicap positively, negatively. I'm looking at mine there. Like, I can't play casual golf. I don't get the intensity, so by association I play shit. You know what I mean? Or rarely I'll play because I need the intensity. I'm just used to that.
On the casual golf side of things, so, and more on the individual perspective side of things also, where people are using selective scoring, especially around competition time in clubs. Captain's prize, president's prize, society days with big prizes. There's also an issue there, obviously, and I would assume it's more in terms of inflating.
That's building, yeah. I can't. I've heard of that happening in clubs. Like, fellas are, they're playing poorly on purpose for a lead into a captain's prize, or like, I just can't get my head around that. Like, why do you want to build your handicap?
And would the old system work better in that instance? That wouldn't.
You could still do it, to be fair, and I remember cases that it did happen. You know, you could enter competitions and fellas would leave the golf course or play 2-3 holes and walk off. You get a natural 0.1 onto your handicap. You know what I mean? Okay. So, like, I think, you know, that's this. It's similar type of thing, but I think people can see. The thing is here, your best 8 of your last 20. Pretty sure that's the case because I've 8 lit up here in green. Your best 8 of your last 20 kind of form your form, basically. And, you know, how good those 8 are form your handicap. So I've 2 scores more now before my next counting card, which is a score differential of -3, right? So that was actually the Irish Mid-Am last year. So even that, I have this kind of cushion that I can go out twice, and in my next 2 competitions, I can only improve my handicap. Now that's mathematics, right? I accept that, but it kind of takes away from, you know, the intensity piece of it a little bit. I'm trying to imagine this from a club golfer's perspective as well. you know, there are pros and cons. Like, to be honest with you, it's fine. It's grand. It's just different. The casual golf thing, I think, is bananas. You know what I mean? Like, if you remove that, I think you start out building, you start out fellas going out playing 9 holes. Like, there's another thing. Oh, I'm going to play 9 holes because I know I can score on that 9, and it'll get my, like, how you can in your head get your handicap down over 9 holes is beyond me. Like, that's even more rubbish. But I know some clubs have kind of addressed this at a local level, and that's good. But yeah, casual golf, like, if people are giving out about building handicaps so much, and it could happen in a casual golf setting, just get rid of it. You know what I mean? Just get rid of it. Like, that's one part of the solution, simple. For me, I don't think it should be, and it was, like, it was problematic there in like the championships we all play in, that you see it on social media. Oh, how are these guys playing off +3, +4 and shooting millions and 80s and 90s and so on? Like, yeah, I agree. I do agree. Now, having said that, back in the old days, let's say on the old system, that still happened, because you'd have guys getting into championships and they just have bad days. The weather gets bad. Like, that can happen. Done it myself numerous times. But managing handicaps to get into championships, keeping guys out who probably are at that level, is a problem. You know what I mean? And I know they did some change to manage the casual golf manipulation of that. That was a good thing. So look, I think it's it probably solves a lot of it solves a lot more problems than maybe the problems it creates. But the problems it creates, I think, are easily sorted out. I'll be very interested to see the course rating situation. I don't think that's consistent around Ireland anyway. Yeah. I think some are difficult. Some are.
And how would those, like, we mentioned some of the features there that would be included in course rating, but am I right in saying that they are rated off the blues in each club? And also, it's obviously an average, or there's some algorithm that works out the average of scoring over how many years is another thing to be aware of.
Well, the rating of the golf course and the slope, so there is a final calculation, but I think they rate the obstacles from 0 to 10. And any research I've done and questions I've asked before we did this podcast was confirming that. Yeah. So a lot of it is opinion based, like. I understand they're probably going off a template, but, you know, another thing, if a golf course changes its hazards, or, you know, does some sort of thing, do they then get the course re-rated? In theory, they probably should. Yeah. And, you know, this PCC versus CSS, or course standard scratch, is what I was referring to there earlier on. Yeah. I think I've only seen PCC get adjusted once or twice playing championships. It never gets adjusted at your club, I wouldn't think, anyway. So
would that not level the playing field slightly, in the sense that a better player should be able to navigate through bad weather anyway?
It should, but it surely should be relative as well, because PCC is influenced, or gets influenced on the collective. So basically, so I'll put it this way: if we go out at 6 a.m, greens are just cut, watered, no wind, and then the following day, the same competition is on, blowing a gale, hammering down with rain, freezing cold. Couldn't happen in this country very easily. A lot of the time, the PCC will be the exact same. Okay. So then there's yeah, there is, yeah. So now there's probably someone listening to this going, there's a clear answer to this, but I haven't seen it. Whereas you would see course standard scratch jump up and down a bit based on weather, and like, yeah, you would. I've seen shot scores in, let's say, Lehenge, for instance, a couple of years ago, playing the South. Where is it? So I shot 4 under. The course rating is 72.6. They play off the whites in the stroke play there. So 72.6, PCC 3. Okay. So that's, and then the score differential was -6.6. So that was a big jump down for me. Right. So I then went from plus 4.7 to plus 5 point something. Yeah, that's the other thing. You can get a big jump on the WHS, whereas back in the day it was all 0.1 increments, or, you know, however shots you beat standard scratch by.
Yeah. One more thing. For, say, like, the higher handicappers slope rating, so slope rating will give you back more shots. Well, due to slope rating, you'll get more shots the higher handicapper than you will a lower handicapper.
So we had. Well, it's relative as well with low handicappers. We had this in Quintalago. Remember, people were getting back so many shots on one golf course.
That's what I was going to refer to. Yes.
The following day we went to the south, I think, and their handicaps were totally different. Yeah. So look, it seemed to work. See, some golf courses are like a place like Quintalago where it's bunkers, water, green, fairway. You know, it's a fairly systematic kind of way to rate, I would think. Yeah. So yeah, that's the other thing. Your handicap, your playing handicap versus your index can change day to day based on the golf course you're going to. Like that wasn't the case before. You just had your handicap, and you went and you played based on there was like a difficulty on the golf courses as well back then, but it was slightly different in the discrepancy, or the change wasn't as big. Like, in fact, there wasn't, you know what I mean? It wasn't as big at all.
So I'm getting the feeling you obviously prefer the old system like many others.
I prefer parts of it. I like the fact that I can go and play a tournament in the States tomorrow and I can my handicap flows into their system. Yeah. Like, I do prefer that. I like that. I like that inclusivity, and I like the way that all works. I wouldn't be a fan of how this is kind of throwing up people with better handicaps than they think they have, basically.
Yeah, okay. So if you say we're given the leeway to change one or two things about the current system, or what would be your argument to do so? I
would just get rid of casual golf scores. I think that's crazy, yeah. I think it's crazy. I think if you want to go before, if you wanted to, like back in the day, if we wanted to get our handicaps, if we wanted to work on our handicaps, we'd go off and find an open single somewhere, or you'd play, you know what I mean? You'd play, but you'd practice to play, like. Whereas now you're kind of going, people can go, sure, it's a lovely day, you know, whatever. Yeah. It's nice and soft, let's go play and shoot a few numbers, like.
Yeah, I hear you. I suppose, like, my argument against it, looking at it from my perspective, when all I want to do is play better, like, you know? Yeah. Like, all I want to do is see my handicap go down. So I'll always feel, even if whether it's casual or competition, I'll feel like it's almost competition, like to a point.
Yeah.
You know,
so. Sure. Again, look, there's the contrarian view to all of this. Like, does it afford people to work on their handicaps? It does. That's the contrarian view there. Like,
yeah,
you know?
Definitely.
I suppose I just come from it that when it's a competition, you're kind of putting it on the line there as well, but it's not as intense. Look, maybe I don't have the answer, but I think for me anyway, personally, I find it very hard. I find it much easier to get into a competitive mindset when you've a card in your arse pocket that's in a tournament or a competition, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Well, any dialogue, we'd love to hear back. Come down our channel and see what questions might be out there from both the casual and competitive golfer. But we'll leave it there. I know we're time pressed, so that is episode 27, and we'll be back again with episode 28 real soon.